Now, when we do this hands-on tutorial, the actual tutorials themselves for EPIQ haven't really changed that much this year, other than just adding in some hooks related to 3D and changing the actual reference tutorials so that they account for 3D. So the actual lessons will seem familiar to anybody that was here last year, with the exception that they're obviously very different, because 3D is very different. You have to think about it differently. The way that you design stuff is different. All the assets are different and all that kind of stuff. But the actual process that you go through to create a game or create something in computer science hasn't really changed. And that's the way programming is. So just to give you kind of a brief overview of what we're gonna do in this session is we're going to just kind of first do kind of a hands-on of like, we're gonna look at creating a scene project. We're gonna do a warm-up of like, spend some time learning about navigating in the environment and that kind of stuff. Now, the next session, which will be run by Amanda and will be at, let's see here. Oops, that's not the right thing.
It's after lunch.
Yes, it's after lunch. And that is at 2 o'clock Eastern, so 11 there. So I think we have to be done by an hour and a half for this one. We might jump into the next one a little bit. Matt and I have talked about this already, because we want you to be able to get to kind of building your scenes out, because that actually takes some time in order to kind of get stuff rolling. But before we do that, I also want to make sure you know how to use the thing. And I know that not everybody that's on the call has actually used Quorum Studio or Quorum at all before. So just by show of yeses and nos in the general chat for Slack, can I please get everybody to type either yes if you've used Quorum Studio before, or no if you haven't, so I can get a rough sense of it. And I see one in the Zoom. Teresa, did you get on the Slack? Or you may not be able to because of whatever system you're on, and that's okay. Okay. All right, so some no's and some yeses, which is about what I'd expect. So first, let's kind of take a whirlwind tour. When I go through this, I will have the screen reader on for some of it, but not all of it. Generally speaking, I know some people teach with screen readers and others do not. So I just want to make sure that I cover both cases. You're fine, Teresa. We are not, I am not judging in any way, shape, or form. And that is the tradition of us, all of us as teachers, is it not? So in any case, I will turn on the screen for parts of it so that I can give explanations and also kind of say what it does. Because for traditional user interfaces, you know, it's probably going to be pretty obvious what it does, because it's going to sound like a traditional user interface, even though technically Quorum is doing some weird black magic behind the scenes to make all this accessible. But once we get to the actual scene editing, well, there's nothing like it. So we kind of had to make decisions about how we made it accessible. What does the camera do? What does this do? And stuff like that. So let's first take a whirlwind tour of the environment. First of all, Quorum Studio is a programming environment. It's something that you download, and you download it on Windows machines typically. It does also work on Macintosh. However, it's not accessible on Mac because we haven't invented an accessible graphics technology on the platform yet, although we're working on it. But on Windows, it is accessible, and what that means, why is it accessible? It means that we connect to the operating system in funny ways, and we solved a problem called the accessible graphics problem. It's just a name we gave it. And that means we can take any kind of arbitrary computer graphics and we can make that accessible no matter who you are. Now, when people talk about accessibility, oftentimes there's some easy misconceptions. Like sometimes when I mention accessibility, I talk about people that are blind. And the reason I do that is because although blind people use screen readers to read something out, and that is a real accessibility issue, the truth is the technologies that are used by screen readers for accessibility are the exact same underlying technologies that are used by people with learning disabilities, people that are deaf. And a lot of those technologies under the hood at the operating system level are actually the same. In other words, if you break something for people that are blind, you often accidentally break it for people with LD, for people with autism, for people with any number of other things. That's not to say that all people with disabilities are the same, because they're clearly not. That's not to say that they all face the same challenges, because clearly that's not true. But on the technology level, they all use the same underlying operating system commands for accessibility. Okay, so I'm going to show a couple things that go in the environment, and I'll state briefly what they are. The screen reader that I'm going to use is NVDA, and I have not hooked up the JAWS voice. I know some of you are very picky about that, but you'll just have to roll with it and use whatever ones you want. But the environment on Windows does actually work fine with NVDA and JAWS. So if I turn on the screen reader, oh, NVDA. You know what? You probably can't hear that. Let me share Zoom audio. Meeting.
Select a window or an application.
We can hear it.
We can hear it. No problem.
Okay.
You're using a Windows 1 core voice, which is okay.
Meeting controls window.
It's not ideal. And for whatever reason, I can't get the stupid JAWS voice to work on my laptop. I don't really know why. It works fine on my other computers, but
I'll tell you offline probably.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, I'm doing all the crazy magic because I've done it before, but like on my, specifically my laptop, it just doesn't like me very much. So I just kind of accept it. I don't get it. And it's funny because I'm an accessibility expert. You'd think that I could solve the most basic of problems, but NVDA just hates me sometimes, and that's okay. Anyway, so if I'm in the environment, I can press the Alt key.
File collapsed F-Alt
and
plus F1
it can take me to a menu.
Expanded. New project and control plus
and it will tell me information about what is in these menus. Now, if I'm blind, I need the screen reader, but at the end of the day, these are also, like I said, it connects to the operating system for any kind of accessibility information. People with learning disabilities often use speaking devices of various kinds, and people with motor impairments use similar technologies for understanding the hitbox when they use eye trackers and stuff like that. So all these things are actually quite connected. Besides that, there's a series of menus. There's the file menu with all the new project and stuff like that.
Undo U control.
There's an edit menu that has things like undo, redo, find, replace, comment, adding comments, doing hints, stuff like that, changing properties. The one you might need to know.
Edit Quorum Studio properties Q control plus Alt plus
is
P13
the edit Quorum Studio properties, which can let you log in. That will allow you to log into our server and download updates if we have them.
Zoom in. I control.
There's a way that you can zoom in and out. So if you have, if you use glasses or something like that, you can press plus, and it just makes it much bigger.
259% zoom. 159% zoom. Zoom in. I control plus equals 1 of 2. Go to line G control.
There's a navigation menu, and when you're navigating in source code, it lets you move up and down by scope and information like that. If you aren't aware, when programming, children and even high school students have a significant difficulty with a concept called scope. We'll get into what that is, but it's basically like ways of structuring code. And students, there's a number of well-known studies on why students have trouble with scope, and even like little innovations about trying to make it easier. And some evidence is that this is why block programming actually does provide some actual benefits for students, is that it just delineates scope, is really all it does.
Build B control.
There's a run menu. This lets you run your program. All the keys are mnemonic. So to run, you might press Control R. To build, you press Control B, or you can use the menu and stuff like that, or you can use the mouse. There's a team menu.
Clone C control plus Shift
the team
plus
menu connects to a system called Git. Git is a version control system, and it's something professional developers use all the time, like almost universally use for everything, right? And the reason is because if you're writing software, you can't store everything in your head at all times. You need to write pieces of your software at a time and then slowly build it up over time, as opposed to just writing it all out in an afternoon. That's impossible, especially as the number of lines of code gets larger and larger. So just to put it in perspective, I think my team wrote last year 95,000 lines of code, somewhere in that ballpark. And so like, you don't write that in a day, you write that over a year, right? And so we use Git to put in all our source code, but for the conference this week, we will also be using Git because we want to introduce you to it for how you get the content to use during the conference. So I'll go over that in a little bit.
Focus next window.
There's a
NF6
Windows
1 of
menu,
10.
lets you jump to stuff. And there's
About a
a
1 of
help
2.
menu that lets you check for updates. Inside of Quorum Studio, if you want to update it, you
Check
just
for
say
updates,
check
view
for
2 of 2.
updates, and then if there is one, it will go find it and it'll download it and kind of do its thing. So
Help collapsed H alt plus
Okay.
H8 of 8.
Now,
Edit file
and-
collapsed expanded. New project and control.
the next
plus
thing
and
that I'm
1
going
of
to
7.
do is I'm actually going to make a new project, and I want everybody to follow along with me for now. And I'm going to pull up, and you can either press Control N, you can go to the menu with the Alt key, or you can just use the mouse. Whatever works for you is just fine. And they all do the same thing. And I'm going to go and I'm going to select New Project.
No projects open. New project templates tree view. Level 2 blank. A blank application in Quorum sets up a default project with no source code inside of it. As classes are optional in Quorum, using a blank project works just as well as an application for writing programs. 1
Okay.
of 2.
Now, inside of this screen is the project menu, and it hasn't changed that much in terms of the content, in terms of Quorum Studio 2, but I want to go over it really quick just so you get a rough idea. There is a general, graphics, scenes, Lego, and other. General is you can make just general programs that like do something, just like write code. And all these programs you can generally run in the browser as well. So if you're following along in the browser, any of the code you can just write online, and that works just fine. And there's several graphics applications.
Level 1 graphics collapsed 2 of 5.
And inside of
Expanded.
this, there's games, something called image sheets, which is for 2D animation. There's physics, 2D and 3D, so you can write physics-based games. And there's something called a skybox, which is kind of like having this weird cube around you that magically looks like it's like a mountain or something like that. It's sort of that's a terrible description, I guess. But the point is that it makes it look like you're in like a 3D environment, right? That sort of thing. Oh yeah, William, we should add skyboxes into the editor. I don't even think we even talked about that. Anyway.
Considering all that we went through to get them in there in the
Collapse.
first place, it is amazing we have not done it yet.
I know, right? Like it'd be really trivial to do too. Like that's an easy one, but anyway. Okay, so
Scenes collapsed.
besides
3 of
that,
5
we've
level
got
1.
scenes. And
Expanded.
inside of those scenes, we've got a blank scene, and this is actually a scene that is for 2D and 3D scene. When we use this, once we're done, I want everybody to select the 3D scene. And the reason for that is because it's not just going to create the scene file, it's going to be blank still. It's also going to dump some assets into your directory so you can use these things out of the box and you don't have to like know how it all works behind the scenes. Besides that, we've got a couple of tutorials for Legos. One on just
Level 2 Lego. This project creates
one
a
just
default
for
Lego
Legos in general, and one for moving them. And then
Expanded.
for other stuff, we've also got an Android template, template for documenting things, some stuff related to internet services and sine waves and some other just funny stuff like that. And then finally, a little web server, although that's actually changed in Quorum 9 as well, but that's not really the point. We won't go over that today.
Blank scene. This project creates a default scene.
Okay,
3D
so I'm
scene,
going to
this
make a
project-
3D scene. I'm going to press tab,
New project. Name edit
and
3D
I'm
scene
going to
application.
make my own name.
D.
And then I'm just go
Blank.
Evil Lord
L R D
Bunnykins.
B N Y K D S
Okay.
S.
And when I'm done, I'm going to give it a name, whatever name that I feel like, and then I'm going to press enter. And by default, that'll put it in a Quorum Studio folder, but you can move it to wherever you want if that's your jam. Oh, what happened?
No video layouts window.
Okay. And then it has created my project, and you'll note that
Quorum Studio
I said Evil Lord
3.0.
Bunnykins. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on that.
Quorum Studio 3.0.0 window.
And I'm going to
Project
open this
expanded.
up, and I'm going to notice that there's 3 folders in there. There's a resources folder,
Level 2 resources collapsed 1 of 3.
and inside of that, there's a
Expanded.
thing that says Tilesets 3D. We don't need to touch this, but it's there, and I just want you to know it exists. And inside of that,
Expanded.
there's all these crazy things like Kenny City Roads, Kenny Graveyard Kit, Kenny Hexagon Kit, Kenny Holiday Kit, Kenny Nature Kit. Seriously, one of the undergraduates that worked at the lab named Trixie gave us a really, really good idea to add in a bunch of assets from this guy named Kenny. And apparently Kenny lets you do all this for free. And we owe a great debt of gratitude to Kenny because they turned out to be really, really fun and super, super kid friendly. So as you'll see, you have quite a bit of options of things to play with, and all those get put into your folder by default. That's it.
Collapsed.
There's 2
Level 2
scene
scenes
files.
collapsed.
There's,
Expanded.
I'm sorry,
Level
there's
3
just one.
scene.qs
There's
1 of 1.
scene.qs, and we will open that in a minute, and then we will also pull out the stuff for the conference as well. And we'll do that in just a second.
Level 2 source code chat. Stop.
Then there's the source code folder. I'm going to pull that out first.
Expanded. Level 3 main.quorum 1 of 1. Code tabs tab control. Main dot
And
remote control.
inside of
Show
this,
video layout. Show thumbnail
inside
video.
of this folder, this generates a file that lets me load in the 3D scenes from the system. Now, we won't get into right away how all this code works. So if you're seeing this code in here and you're freaking out already, don't sweat it because we'll get there. And you don't need to know all these details in order to actually run a 3D game. But 3D games are like a little bit complicated. So you have to do something to get it to load. And so anything you need to generate your game is done for you. But this is kind of a template it produces in order to make it go. So before we go on, what I'd like to do is have everybody press Control-R to run their game and then put into Slack whether or not they got it to run. I just want to make sure that everybody can get there because it's online and we can't really walk around or anything. So on my end,
Zoom meetings.
and I'm going to turn off the screen reader for now. I'm going to reshare my screen as my desktop so that it shows everything. If I press Control-R, or you can go up to menu and run, it says build successful in 0.26 seconds, and it pulls up a game, and it is a beautiful, lovely gray screen. It is utterly blank, but it is amazing. So if you can, just put in that you got it. I see a few people putting it in. Got the gray, good, good. Got it, okay, great. Now, let me explain very briefly why this is actually more interesting than you think it is. This looks like it's just a gray screen, and it is. However, this is a gray screen that connects to your graphics chip, and it's sending down all sorts of stuff in linear algebra to the graphics chip, and it's telling it to display stuff, and it's sending it over in a way that's called hardware accelerated. What that means is, if during the course of EPIQ, you decide that you are going to render 150,000 3D models for your thing, and you're not on a fancy gaming rig, your computer will slow down, right? And I know this because somebody in the lab started creating some scenes, Gabriel, and like my computer didn't have a fancy graphics chip in it. And we discovered that, yeah, for the 3D system, just be aware, your system might need to have less polygons or less sort of fancy models compared to the other. I know Gabriel did a good job, actually. So the point is, when you're making these games, you're actually generating 3D graphics, which are hardware accelerated by your computer. 2.4 seconds to load a gray screen. That's a long time, actually. I think mine was 0.26. I don't know why. My machine's a little old, like 5 years old too, so a little bit unlucky. Okay, everybody got me? It sounds like almost everybody has it up. I see the general chat seems like it's good. Lots of got it. Okay, great.
Hey, Steffi.
Yes, sir.
Daniel here. I'm sorry. I created the file. How do I go and bring that part up? I'm a little confused. So I did, I gave it a file name. Where do I go to, I guess, pull this up? I'm a little confused.
So on my screen, if I have a screen reader, I'll turn the screen reader back on so you can hear what it says.
NVDA. Quorum Studio 3. Level 1 Evil Lord Bunnykins expanded.
Okay, on my side it said level 1 Evil Lord Bunnykins 1 of 1. I'm in the project window, and I can get to that by pressing Control-1.
Okay.
And
level 2 resources. Windows expanded W alt collapse. Projects tree view. Level 1 Evil Lord
Bunnykins
expanded 1 of 1.
I need, because I gave it a
Tell you what.
file name. Do I need to open the file up once I give it a file name?
Why don't,
Pause share, stop share, Alt plus S. Exit
just to
MV.
make sure that we get you up and running, can I toss you into a breakout room for just a minute so that we can?
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to disrupt everybody.
No, that's okay. Hannah or Trixie, would you be willing?
I can try.
Okay. Just the easiest way would be to share screens.
Okay.
And then I'm going to assign Daniel Martin to room 1. And I'll assign you there too, Hannah. But I've set it so that you should be able to jump back and forth between the 2 rooms.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll get you fixed up and move you right back, Daniel. We'll try not to go too far without you. So, okay. So in terms of the, wait a minute, am I still sharing screen? I'm not. Yes, I am. Wait, no, I'm not. Okay, sorry, just 1 second, technical difficulties. Share screen. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do then is we're going to notice that if I open this source code file, it pulls out source code. We don't need to know what that is for right now. We're not going to get to source code quite yet. But what the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to the scene file. And that's going to say scene.qs. It's under the scenes tab. And when I press return on it, it's going to pull up what looks like the 2D editor, because it is the 2D editor. But we're going to go ahead and have some fun with the 3D editor. And so what I'm going to do is I can go, actually, I'll turn the screen reader back on just so people can hear it. And
NVDA. Quorum, Windows expanded W Alt plus W7 of 8.
What is the key?
Collapsed. Project.
Control.
Scene items tree view.
Nope.
Level 1 default layer 3D collapsed 1 of 2.
I can go to the projects tab
Expanded.
and I can pull up the default 3D or 2D layer.
Level 1 default layer 2D collapsed 2 of 2.
If I am on this, there's 3 tabs in the project window. There's projects, scene, and palette. There's 2 layers in the scene tab, default layer 2D and default layer 3D. Default layer 2D is exactly the same as it was last year, barring maybe a few bug fixes here and there or something like that. Default layer 3D.
Level cameras collapsed. Level 1 default layer 3D expanded 1 of 2.
When that is selected on the screen, what you see visually is you should see an infinite grid of 3D items, and there's a blue transparent box in the middle of it. If I then go to the palette,
tab pane tab,
I can see a whole bunch of different options of things that I can add in, and the editor is smart enough to kind of know where you're at, and this is all accessible too. So the first one is basic 3D.
Expanded.
Inside of basic 3D, I can add a number of items into the scene. So we're going to go through not all of them, but I'll give you a rough sense of them.
Level 2 audio 3D 1 of 5.
Level 2 audio 3D 1 of 5. That means you can add in your own audio files and you can put them in 3-dimensional space and walk around the environment, and it works to make audio in your games.
Cube 2 of 5 level 2.
You can add cubes.
Cylinder 3 of 5 level 2.
Cylinders.
Point light 4 of 5 level 2.
Something called a point light. A point light is like a light in a video game. You can make a light to sort of grow and stuff like that. Now, I will say in terms of lighting, this is one of the most difficult things to make accessible. We can tell you where a light is, and we can tell you the intensity and color of that light, but we can't easily tell you where that light reaches. That's a much harder problem graphically to be able to tell you accessibly, because it could hit a million objects, right? How do you represent that? And so, so there are still things that, even though we've worked hard on accessibility, not everything is easy. So
Sphere 5 of 5 level 2.
And there's spheres.
Collapsed.
Besides that,
expanded.
There's custom 3D items.
Level 2 custom cube 1 of 4.
And these custom cubes basically allow you to have textures put onto them, so you can make like a ball with like a texture on it, stuff like that.
Custom model 3 of 4 level 2.
Going back to Jafar's question from before, this plus that I'm on screen, and in the screen reader it says
custom model 3 of 4 level 2.
Custom model is you can actually load in your own 3D model up online, even if you don't use the whole add it into the palette. You can just add a custom model and put it in.
Collapsed.
And then we've got a series of assets for 3D, and there are
City roads 3D collapsed 3 of 10 level 1.
City roads, nature, medieval castles, and space. Those are the ones that we put in by default. You can, of course, add your own as you see fit through the system. But we added those because we had to hand describe them, provide information about them, and stuff like that. So let's take a quick look at them. For city roads,
expanded.
We have
level 2 barriers collapsed 1 of 6.
Things like barriers.
Expanded.
And these are a little bit hard to see.
Level 3 bending road barrier.
But they're described.
Crossroad barrier 2 of 20 level 3.
So they're a little bit hard to see because that's the same color that they actually are inside of a game.
Level collapsed. Level
There's
collapsed.
nature.
Nature 3D collapsed 4 of 10 level 1. Expanded. Expanded.
Inside of this, there are things like blocks.
Level 3 diagonal rock cliff 1 of 56. Diagonal rock cliff top 2 of 56 level 3. Diagonal stone cliff 3 of 56 level 3.
Now you'll also discover that even though we've described all these 3D models, it doesn't mean that the way that our descriptions are there are perfect. And in some cases, it's actually very difficult to figure out how to describe them.
Left collapsed.
One of my students,
Hannah Williams has
Trixie, had the job of describing all of the rocks.
Expanded.
And if you look visually at these rocks,
Daniel Martin has joined the meeting alert.
There's a lot of them.
Level 3 rock large A 1 of 30. Rock large B 2 of 30 level 3. Rock large C 3 of 30 level 3. Rock large D 4. Rock small A 7 of 30 level 3.
Basically trying to describe each of these rocks can be pretty challenging. So I think that my point here is that even though we're working hard to make stuff in 3D accessible, it's not magic, right? Like it still has to somehow give you information. It's not always 100% clear what that information should be. And I'm trying to give you an
level 2 collapsed. Left collapsed.
Okay, finally there's
medieval castles. Expanded. Ceiling collapsed 2 of 7. Expanded.
There's things like ceilings.
Level 3 overhang 1 of 6. Overhang round 2 of 6 level 3. Overhang fence 3 of 6 level 3. Roof 4 of 6 level 3. Roof corner 5 of 6 level 3.
So, and then they try to describe what is going on in each of the 3D models. And of course, if you can see them, then you can see them visually and use them that way as well.
Left collapsed. Structures expanded. Level 3 painted tower 1 of 9. Painted tower base 2 of 9 level 3.
So we attempted to describe all of these as the point.
Left collapse. Space 3 expanded.
And then there's space. And so I'm going to go to the ships.
Rocks collapsed 14 of 18 level 2. Ships collapsed 50 expanded.
Andrew asks, are you all experimenting with haptic feedback for accessibility? And the answer is yes. And that's part of what we actually have had a grant for haptic feedback for many years through the National Science Foundation. And actually last year's EPIQ, we had Jenna Gorowitz was the keynote speaker. She's a haptics researcher that works in St. Louis and is a grant partner of mine on the new grants as well. Innovation is she's been using what are called laser Doppler vibrometers to measure haptic feedback in a way very specifically related to perception. And we've been using that, and that's part of the new iPhone stuff that we're working on over the next couple of years for data science, that specifically. So yeah, we have experts on the team that work on that. We have never applied it to 3D game programming because this is brand new technology. We just invented it, like literally a few weeks ago is when it came out. So, so we haven't done that for 3D games, but yeah, we are experimenting with it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click on one of the ships, and you can click on whatever item you want or put it in, and I'm going to add in a mining ship.
Mining ship 4 of
the
9
mining ship in this particular case does have a description, although off the top of my head, I'm not remembering what the key is. Does William, do you remember what the key is to grab the description?
Oh, it's slipping my mind.
It's one of the NVDA keys, I think, but I'm spacing it as well.
Try NVDA delete.
NVDA delete.
For the status bar, I think, or NVDA page
Move to
down.
focus. Mining ship 4 of 9 level 3.
Well, I'm on a laptop. Let me see.
Oh, laptops.
Bottom. Mining ship.
No.
Well, in any case, we can figure out that
ship.
key later. It does put it into the proper description field, so you can get that, but I'm forgetting what the stupid key is.
Cargo ship.
Okay,
Mining
in any
ship
case,
4 of 9
I've
level
got
3.
a cargo ship, and there is a description that is a more detailed description. Each one of these items has a name and a description. To tell you roughly what this looks like, it has two little things in the front that are protruding, and then there is sort of a back end with two little engines that are in the back. If I press return on it, it puts it in the scene.
Mining ship in orange and gray. Remote more.
It puts
Video
it in the
layouts
scene.
window. Video
And now
layouts.
I'm in this 3D scene editor, and on the screen is a properties window that has position, scale, rotation, color, and I can jump to it by pressing Control P or using the mouse, right? And in that positions, I can use that information to move stuff around. Besides that, it's also got physics, and you can turn that on or off. And then it can be responsive or not, and it can have mass, friction, or restitution. And we won't get to those physics properties quite yet, but the point is that like there are ways that you can adjust some stuff in the engine. Now, if I'm in the system and I move the item, oops.
Quorum Studio
That's
3.0.0 window. Scene palette. Mining ship 4 of. Mining ship in orange and gray ship with protruded elements at
Oh,
the
yeah,
front
the
and 2
description
flat
right there,
engines in the
great.
back.
Now, if I move
200.
to the left and right,
30.
visually,
400.
it doesn't look like it's doing anything, which is not correct. I mean, it is the behavior that we want it to have, but it's going to seem like it's doing nothing right now. Can anyone figure out why that is and tell me? First interactive question, which you can respond either by voice or on Slack. Visually, when I do this, I see a 3D protruding grid, and I don't visually see any difference in the models, but the screen reader actually tells me something.
Because you hate sighted people.
Because I hate
300.
sighted people. Yes, that's the answer. You've got it correct. That's correct.
Yes.
200.
Because there's nothing to compare it to.
100.
Aha, that is the correct answer. The item is moving, but I'm on an infinite plane in all directions, or nearly infinite, in all directions. So I wouldn't observe anything when I move this around. And that is because by default, the camera that is staring at my scene is linked to the item that I'm focused on. I'll say that again, because it's very important for understanding how the camera works inside of the scene editor. My camera is staring at the cursor, just like it would be in a text editor, right? If I'm in a text editor, when I move the cursor, the camera, which that's all it is, it's a fake internal camera, moves the scroll pane with my cursor. Inside of the 3D editor, it's the same principle, except that right now there's no landmarks and it's an infinite space in all directions, so I don't observe anything. So let's go ahead and add in an item, which I do by pressing enter.
Placed mining ship. Mining
Okay,
ship
I've
1.
now placed a mining ship. If I now move to the left or the right,
Mining
it
ship
says
200.
mining ship 200. And it says that because my 3D item is colliding with the mining ship. So if you're using a screen reader, you can tell that something is colliding with each other because it's hitting the cursor, and it'll tell you that, right? It doesn't make it easy necessarily to build 3D games right off the bat. It takes practice and it'll take some experience, and your kids will have to get used to it. But at the same time, it is possible, right? Like it's much, much better than having no feedback at all. So if I keep going,
300. 400. 500.
orally, the system is telling me three numbers: 300, 400, 500. Visually, you can see the mining ship moving to the left, which is actually not the ship moving, it's the camera moving. Okay, I'll say that one more time. When I press the arrow keys, I'm actually moving the cursor, and the camera is linked to the cursor. Okay, I know I've said it like 3 or 4 different times in different ways, but this is such a fundamental concept. I just want to make sure that we all kind of get it. So before we go on, any questions on that? Everybody kind of get it? Does that make sense?
So are you saying that when you're moving the arrow keys, it's the camera that's moving?
It's both. It's the cursor and the camera. Imagine that like you have two items in space, and I'll get to your question in just a second, Teresa. You have two items in space. You have a cursor and it has a position, and then you have a camera and it has a position. And the camera is permanently fixed, staring at that item in a specific way. And no matter where you move the cursor, the camera moves with it. Now you can change where the camera is pointed at, we'll get to that. But at the starting point, the camera is permanently fixed, staring at that cursor. And when you move the cursor, the camera moves along with it.
Okay. Yeah, no. So I was thinking more about, okay, so if I've dropped that mining ship, if I move the arrow keys, I am not moving the ship. I am moving the cursor, which in turn is moving the camera. Or the camera is following the cursor, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You got it. That's exactly right.
Got it. Quick thing, how do I get to the scene palette again? What's the
NVDA.
keystroke?
To the scene palette is, I think it's
Using Control 1 will jump you to that that tab pane where the projects, the scene, and the palette are. And once you're there, you can change between the tabs using Control Tab and Control Shift Tab.
Oh, okay. So because I have seen QS open, I have to get to the palette. Okay, got it.
Yep. Okay. I'm trying to. Okay. Okay. So I think there was one more question. How do you bring back the object properties? I think you can press Control P, Teresa, and that should pull it up. If that doesn't work, Teresa, let me know. Did that work for you? If I closed it and then I press Control P, oh, that did not.
So if you want to bring up the properties for an item, are you trying to access the properties of an item that's already in the scene, or are you trying to play something new and look at?
No, it's that properties window closed.
I'm trying to bring it back to what he had originally.
Yeah, and I just did what Teresa did. I closed it and then I pressed Control P, but that didn't do it. That pulls up the project window.
Right.
What is the?
So right now, if you want to look at the properties for that item that's already in the scene, if you bring your cursor up and then navigate to it, pressing Enter allows you to select it, and then its project properties will be available again. Control P is the hotkey to jump your focus to it once you've selected on it.
Gotcha. So I'll do that again for Teresa. If I'm in the scene, I have a cursor, and then if I go select on something, I can move it left and right. If I select on something, it'll pull up the properties window again, which is Enter. Did that work for you?
No.
If you'd like to put us in a breakout room together real quick, I can.
Yeah, no problem.
I can help with that.
The breakout rooms are open, so I'm happy to assign them. Let me stop.
So here's the problem. I've got my Zoom on a different computer than I have my.
Oh, okay.
I see.
Yeah, no problem.
But this might be my problem too. I have two objects.
Two objects.
Yeah.
Like
I made two spaceships.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Oh yeah, Amanda says Control P object properties, Control 1 projects window, Control 2 editors window. In the scene, select with Enter the object you want, and then it'll pull up the properties window. And that's what it's doing in mine too. So if you, I don't know if you can see or not, Teresa, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. On my screen where it's shared, there's this little blue box that's moving back and forth.
Right.
And if I press Enter on that ship, it pulls up the properties on that thing. Does it not do that for you?
No, but you know what? I'll just start over.
Okay, no problem.
I selected my object from the Scenes tab, and that brought up the object again.
Yeah, that'll work as well. Clicking on the Scene tab, you can find the items in there.
Okay, I have a question about the assets.
Yes.
Which is like if you have diagonal rock cliff and diagonal rock cliff top. So if I want to show a complete cliff, do I have to put the diagonal rock cliff and then put the top cliff top on top of that?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that if I had to guess, the mapping of all these items to be exactly how you want is going to be the hardest part, because that's the part you kind of have to keep in your head. Although the system will tell you information, but I don't know how difficult it will be. And so this is one of the things about trying to invent stuff that is blind accessible, that is like crazy graphical at the same time, is that this is one of those things that there's no research for us to really guide us on what would be good here. So there's a bit of guesswork in going on. In other words, I think we did a good faith attempt to try to make this as easy as we can, but I imagine that you and others will have feedback as we go, and that's a good thing. So
yeah, okay.
Okay, so now I've got my little spaceship, and I'm going to add one more spaceship, and I'm going to move it around, and I'll turn the screen reader on again.
NVDA. Edit collapsed E-Alt plus E2 of 8. Scene palette.
And I've got a ship, and I can move it around just like I had before. This is an
800, 700, mining ship, 60, mining ship, 50, mining ship, 40, mining ship, 50, mining ship, 6, 700, 800, 90, 1000, 1100, 1200.
I don't know why I was queuing those messages up, but we'll ignore that for right now. I've got a ship. It's at right now 1200. So the next thing I want to ask, because it's related to 3D, is what does it mean when the system says 1200? What does that mean?
Placed angled wing ship. Angled
1200. And we could have given more descriptive things, but go ahead.
12 would be 12 units on the right of 0 on the x-axis.
Yep.
0 is the y and 0 is also z, which means it's sitting on the ground, I think.
Yep, that is exactly correct. Okay, so oftentimes when you think of 3D, we use, just like with graphs, we use a coordinate system. And that is done in X, Y, and Z. There are different ways different computer programs use to represent X, Y, and Z. And so in Quorum specifically, the first number is the X plane, the second number is the Y plane, and the third number is the Z plane. Now, importantly, if I have X, you can think about it like a normal chart. To the right is positive, to the left is negative. Y, positive is up and negative is down. But can anyone answer me, what is Z? What's positive? Is it forward or backward? And this is actually a surprisingly tricky question.
Quorum.
Is it forward or backward?
So I think negative would be higher, if I remember correctly.
Higher? Okay.
Higher in the sense, from the y-axis, the way I think of Z is from, if I were to go up, the spaceship has to go up. So if it has to go above the plane, I think it'll have to be negative, probably.
Okay, and then Andrew says negative would be moving toward the camera. Steve Reparelli says positive away. Oh, go ahead, Jafar.
Z, is it because when I did 3D sounds, it seems to me that if I added the Z axis, it sounds like it sounds coming from above. Above,
okay. So here's the truth. Mathematicians do not agree about which is which.
Oh dear.
Unfortunately, physicists, if you have a Z coordinate and it's positive, that makes it go backwards. Computer scientists do it both ways, depending upon which graphics engine it is, which is even more confusing. So some of them go forward and some of them goes backwards. And then pilots in the military, and I swear this is true to the best of my knowledge, Z actually goes down, not forward and not backward. Z is what we usually think of as the y-axis, which is even more confusing. And when you think about it, that kind of makes sense, because then you can look down from a plane and the XY plane is the actual terrain, like Y is going forward and then X and Y is going left and right. So that it does actually make some sense, even though it is quite confusing. In specifically Quorum, the Z-axis is going forward. So an issue of 1 moves it ahead. So on my screen,
No.
collapsed via-
What do you mean by ahead in this case?
yeah,
Because
so if the easiest way to describe it, if everyone in the room puts their arm out in front of them, directly ahead of their face, that's positive Z. And if you take your arm and you put it behind you, that's negative Z. So I don't know if people can see me.
Stop share. Meeting. You have stopped. Exit and
If my arm in front of me is positive Z and my arm behind me is negative Z, right?
okay, and Y is up and down. Is it?
Y is up, positive Y is up, negative Y is down, and left and right, just like on a graph, is the same as you would usually think about it.
Oh.
Now,
Okay.
to
so
make
right
this
forward.
even worse, and this is why 3D can get tricky, imagine what happens if I flip my camera around. Right? Do you see why we're starting to have a fixed angle on the camera to make it so that it's a consistent thing every time, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to give you a way to have a mental model, especially if you can't see it, because then it gets even harder, right? Okay, so I'll say this one more time. Left and right, left, negative X, right, positive X. Forward and backward or Z. In front of me is positive Z. Behind me is negative Z. Up, positive Y, and down, negative Y. Before I move on, this is not only in the editor, this is the way it is in the code, and this is the way it is in 3D systems broadly. This is how 3D systems work, is they use coordinate systems like this, and it's something you kind of get used to. But the benefit is this technique of using coordinates like this is a really common thing you see on standardized testing. You see it in maps. My third grader had it on her maps testing last year, oddly enough, which I thought was sort of surprising. She had vector math on there, which is sort of odd. And this kind of stuff, it is something that comes up in math classes all the time because it's basic coordinate system stuff, but it is also legitimately confusing because you've got cameras and objects and you're moving them around in a funny way. So before we move on, any other questions about this?
Okay, I hate to ask. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Light.
Yes.
Where does the light come in? Where is that in relation to the coordinate plane?
Lights are on the same plane. So lights, and we haven't done any lights yet. We haven't tried to put those into the scene yet. But the way lights work is that, very briefly, in terms of the coordinates, it's identical. You can move them to any particular coordinate spot in exactly the same way. Now, how they hit on objects is tricky. They've got different properties that you put in on lights related to intensity and color and stuff like that. And whether they hit an object depends on whether they're occluded. So that's a little bit tricky. So I don't want to get into that quite yet, but I will say in terms of their coordinate planes, it's exactly the same. And same with audio. Audio, you put an audio object in there and it's automatically put it into the same way. With 3D audio, there's also the issue of where am I in relation to the audio, because you want to be able to hear it in 3D sounds. So if you want to be able to hear your audio in 3D, Quorum does do that automatically, but you need actual speaker systems that account for it. So if you don't have that, and you just have had headphones, it won't sound perfect. It'll still be okay, but it won't sound perfect. It's called an HRTF algorithm, but never mind that. So,
Steffi, do you have those coordinates that you were describing earlier in the tutorials? like positive X, positive Y, and positive up and positive down. Yeah, those would be handy if you have them in the.
I'm actually
tutorials
not
and
sure. Tim Rafalski, I think you modified those the most recently. Did you toss those in there? I'm actually not sure if we did.
Yeah, in the teacher's track, I believe it's in the code. And
oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, and because we modified the hotkeys to match that spreadsheet.
You know, it would
Okay,
maybe
good,
it'd be a good idea for us to add it to that one on the scene movement as well. I think you did though, didn't you? I could have sworn I saw it in there.
So independently of the scene tutorials, which I would have to look at to double check, but I know that in our drawing 3D tutorials on the website, we do have this information on one of the lessons here, which I can link into the EPIQ channel if that would be helpful.
Yeah, if it will be very helpful because then it is because that is a very descriptive way to tell us about 3D, you know. So I benefited quite a lot from it, but I just want if it is scripted and then we can refer to it when we forget. So that would be very handy.
No problem. And before I move on, I also want to ask, I know that there's some newer teachers that are joining EPIQ for the first time this year. I think Teresa, Dana, and a few others. Any questions from you? I want you to be welcome and included. And so if you have any questions, any from you, or are you good? Or Daniel too?
Got a quick question. So,
okay, great.
I know I went over some of this stuff for myself when I was trying to teach it. How do I get to the choices of the choice, like the spaceships and things like that? Do I click on that Q editor thing? Because I can't seem to get to where the list of all the choices are of like.
Yeah, no problem. Let me go over that again. So if I'll turn on the screen reader again so you can hear what it says as I'm doing it.
Okay.
Club NVD Quorum Studio 3.0.0 window.
If I'm
Quorum
at
Windows
any point in the
W
Windows,
plus collapsed.
Oops.
File collapsed F Alt. Focus next window and F6 1 of 10.
There is a folder, there's a menu called Windows, and inside of it, it lets you jump around and it gives you hotkeys to do it. And it also lets you just go to the menu and jump there. And I'm just going to read those. There's focus to next window and previous window, but then there's special hotkeys for the projects tab, editor tab, output tab, errors tab, variables, breakpoints, call stack, and search results. Now, we haven't talked about almost any of those yet, and they're not important yet. But the ones that you care about are projects and editor. Projects
P control plus 1 3 of 10.
It's control 1.
Scene palette tree view. Angled wing chip 1
okay.
of level 3.
And when I'm in the projects tab, there's actually 3 tabs in there, and I can navigate between them with the standard hotkey on Windows, which is control tab.
Projects tree view.
So on my screen right now, I've got projects. The name of the tab is projects. And then I've got Evil Lord Bunnykins, which is, of course, the name of all games. And then inside of that are 3 folders: resources, scenes, and source code. Inside of scenes is a file called scene.qs. And if I press enter on that, it'll pull up the scene editor.
Okay, I hit enter on that.
Yep. And then, so once I do that,
Code tabs tab
it
control.
takes me to the scene editor.
Tab. Scene.qs angled wing chip 1200. Press enter to select items.
It doesn't take me to the palette, right? So to go to the palette, I can press control 1 to go back to projects.
Projects tree view.
And then I press control tab.
Scene items tree view. Mining ship 1 of 2 level 3.
And then I press control tab again.
Scene palette tree view. Angled wing ship 1 of 9 level 3.
So it says scene palette tree view.
Okay.
Scene palette tree view is the one that you want, and then you can see all these items.
Boxy cargo ship 2 of 9 level.
Okay, I'm just writing some notes down while you're talking here. I'm going to go ahead and try it.
Yeah, no problem. You know, it might actually make sense for us to have a hotkey to get to the palette and scene directly. William, do you think you could write that down?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll go ahead and I'll add that to our notes here.
Yeah, because it's a lot of steps to get there.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, I mean, like I usually think of like the control tab thing as like a common hotkey, but like, you know, it's also not super intuitive. So we'll see if we can't add that. Okay.
Good. I got to it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, and I saw that the 2 people that I asked, Teresa and Data, thank you both for responding. I'm glad that it seems like it's working, so good. Okay, so.
I guess a quick question about the
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
being a blind individual, I'm assuming the Z then going farther away, in theory, the object is going to be smaller because it's out further from your field of vision.
You've got it. That's exactly right.
So that's why the plus is further away, the minus is closer to you. Okay.
Yep, that's right. You've got it exactly. And so that's really. Oh, got done with the concurrent. Oh, you had a concurrent meeting, Co. I'm very sorry. I have been there many, many times this year. So yeah, that's exactly right, Art. With the whole point of us building this thing, well, in part because I have this silly desire to try to invent technologies that really have no business being blind accessible, and I just want to make them accessible because that's like my deep desire inside my brain. But forget that for a moment. It's like trying to figure out how to describe these in such a way that it's intuitive what's actually happening is pretty difficult. But I think that the easiest way I can think of is to think about it like the real world, exactly like you just said. You would observe it getting farther away, you would observe it getting smaller, and that's what you would see on screen as well, just like it would be in real life.
So the quorum then, as you increase the Z visually, it is going to make the object smaller to meet the scene, or no, it doesn't?
Yes, it does. That's correct. It does it correctly according to what you would observe in 3D real perception in real life. So, yep, exactly. So it's kind of like you can't, even if you can't see the screen, you can't perceive it through your eyes, you can get information about what it is, which still allows you to use it and create meaningful games and do stuff like that. Okay, it sounds like we're good. So let's keep going. I think the next thing to talk about is, let's talk very briefly about these properties that we have here. So we're just kind of exploring the scene editor. And I think we have, what, we have a half hour left, is that right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, cool. So let's talk about these properties. So inside of these properties on screen, there are position, scale, and rotation. We're gonna adjust each of these individually, and there's hotkeys to adjust them to, but we'll just do it through the properties window for now.
Could you screen share, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, I messed that up. I apologize. Okay, inside of these properties, I'm gonna first adjust. We've talked about position already. And I won't turn on the screen reader for this part because I don't think it necessarily matters. Inside of these, let's first talk about scale. There's 3 items for scale that can be adjusted. There's X, Y, and Z. Just like with the positions there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what each of these are, and then I'm going to kind of describe what they do visually on the screen. So if I change the X scale, what do people think would happen when I do that? And you can put it in Slack, or you can say it through the voice if you prefer. If I change the X scale, what do you think would happen visually to the item that I'm having? Adam says, go ahead. Adam says, make it wider. Travis says it would get wider. So let's give it a shot. All right, now, when I do it, that is the correct answer. It becomes a wider ship. And visually, when you stretch items like this, they don't always look visually correct. And this is one of these things that is actually difficult to get across accessibly. You know, what does it mean to be correct, right? What does it mean to look reasonable? And so really the idea is that, yeah, that's exactly right. It will be flat and wide. If the scale is not the same across X, Y, and Z, your ship or item might look too fat, too small, too thin, whatever, or it might not. And this is difficult to get across accessibly, and that's just, unfortunately, I don't know of a way around that, at least in the short term. So if I go back to 1 here, and then I flip to the Y, it's the same boat. I've got a ship that is 10Y, and it stretches it up and down. And then if I've got a ship that's 10Z, 10Z, then it's going to look really thin and long, thin and long. And that is scale. I can adjust each of those so that they're the same if I just want to have a very big ship as well. So if I say 10, 10, 10, then all of a sudden I've got a very large ship. And on the screen visually, the moment that that property is changed is the moment that the scene automatically updates. Okay. Scale is probably the easiest to understand, at least conceptually, but are there any questions about scale? You know, how big is it really? Okay. The next one is rotation. And rotation is a funny thing in 3D because how you rotate depends on what rotation means, right? What does it mean to rotate? It sounds like a funny question. Like, what does it mean to rotate? But so let me ask is, what does it mean, do you think, to rotate on X? Anybody have an idea of what it means to rotate on X? Anybody ever thought about it?
Your back will be facing the front, isn't it? If you all rotate on X.
Back would be facing the front. Okay.
I may not be right, but I think that's it.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's why we're talking about it, because I'm gonna change these properties, and I want people to observe it, and then we'll talk about what it does. I see Adam typing away.
Would it mean that you're
go ahead.
turning the whole ship to the right or to the left?
Okay. And then Adam said it would pivot around the x-axis with the axis in its center. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start typing numbers in here. Let's see what happens. Oops. Okay. If I'm in the x coordinate, and if I type 1, it seemed to move just a smidge with, instead of the ship pointing to the front, it seemed to move a little bit to the right. If I type 45, it seemed to go a little bit more to the right. If I type 90, it seems to, instead of facing at me, it seems to be facing to the right. So I got a funny feeling that Adam has the right answer. It would pivot around the x-axis. Or actually, yes, you're going to see it visually.
It's pivoting about the y in this case. The
y-axis, but you see it observed on the x.
What the mechanism we have here, for anyone who's familiar with yaw, pitch, and roll, that's what these rotation fields are. So you can imagine that for this x value, this is similar to turning your head left or right.
Right. And it does it in degrees. So 180 flips it around, and 360, not surprisingly, does nothing. So on your end, try putting in some values. Now, oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, fixed your answer. Yeah, rotation chronically is one of the things that is more difficult to understand, I think, in computer science. Okay, let's talk about y. Let's talk about y, since it's pitch. If I have 45 degrees there, it's going to be going slightly more down. If I have 90, it's going to, instead of pointing at me, yes, this is rotate. Steve asks, this is rotating the ship, not the camera, and that's correct. It is not rotating the camera, it's just rotating the ship. If I have a ship and it's pointed straight at me, and I give it a pitch of 90, it's going to point that ship down. If I have a pitch of 180, it's going to flip it completely over. 270 is going to pitch it going up. And 360 again will do nothing. And then there's roll. So roll is in the same column as Z for these object properties. And we're in the same boat. 45 this is kind of like tilting the ship in a way. It's sort of like if I have my hand and my hand is faced forward, the roll is moving my hand around the z-axis, right? That's effectively what it's doing. So if I have 90 degrees, instead of the ship being faced at me, it's kind of like rolling over on its side, kind of like rolling over on its side to the right, depending on your perspective.
Confused.
Confused. Yeah, welcome to rotations. So
yeah,
the point is that you've got on the where the x-axis column is, rotation is going to move around the y-axis. If you have in the y column, it's going to make it go face straight down or face straight up. It's kind of flipping it around the x-axis. It's a little strange. And z is kind of like moving your item around the z-axis, kind of like it's twirling around.
No, suppose I'm in an aircraft which is flying.
Yes.
So I understood X, which would be turning.
Yep.
Okay. Y should be the aircraft going up or down, probably with.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, what is Z? Because when you talk about flipping, I'm thinking this thing is going, the nose is pointing down, it's flipping over.
Adam described it as barrel rolls. I like that description. That's really good.
I've heard the term. I know space shuttles do it and fighters do it, but I don't know what it means.
So the nose would be pointing straight forward, and it would be spinning its wings either clockwise or counterclockwise, with the nose pointing along the z-axis.
Okay, so what you're telling me is the ship would sort of spin.
Yep.
Kind of.
Yes. So like one wing would go up, the other wing goes down, and then it rotates all the way around while the nose points in just a straight line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Now
something like a top, spinning top.
No, because
not quite. Spinning top would actually be That's the X coordinate, is like a spinning top.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the So that's in the X spot. That's a good question though. This is a very confusing concept, and I think that not every kid in computer science needs to understand yaw, pitch, and roll. But because we're going to be using the 3D editor this week, I want everybody to have a rough sense of what these things are as we get going to be able to build stuff out.
But the rotation wouldn't be kind of, if you think about looking at a clock on a wall where your hands are going around, maybe that might help people understand the concept.
Yeah, okay, there's another way to think about it. Like if you had a clock on the wall and the hands are moving, which one would that be for the community?
That'd be your Z.
Yes. Yeah.
But just think about the one hand, the mini hand. Let's not worry about the second hour hand because they're not going to be in sync. But yeah.
Well, that's true. They're just going at different speeds, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but at least the idea for maybe to get a mental, physical conception to somebody is think about a clock mounted on a wall.
Yeah, that's good. That's good too. Okay.
For a barrel roll, just think about yourself rolling over, like laying in bed and rolling over. Your head doesn't really change direction, just your body rolls.
Oh, that's great too. I love that. Like you're just rolling over in bed. Yeah, that's perfect.
But the trouble is you roll side to side as you do the roll in the bed, though. You're not spinning like on a spit, like you're being cooked like a pig.
Well, I still actually kind of like it because when I roll in bed, that is kind of how I do. I kind of roll on I guess you're right. You might be moving to the left or right a little. Your position might change too, but still, it's a good analogy.
So in other words, while some part of you is moving, one part of you will stay unmoved, stay straight.
Yes, rotation doesn't change your position ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a reason why these three, position, scale, and rotation, I wanted to go over because we'll use these as we build our editor out. Now, I will also say, if you find one of these confusing, like if you say, look, I just don't understand the rotation stuff, don't actually sweat it, because you don't really need to know this to do computer science. This is just, if you want to manipulate the editor and you want to rotate something around, you can. And so I'm giving you a sense of that so that you can adjust, so that you can adjust that in your editor. But if for some reason you find the rotation or something to be confusing, even though these are common terms, you don't have to sweat it too much. It's okay to like not use that particular feature if you want. It won't hurt anything while you're building out your game. So same with scale and position. Position you have to adjust because you're gonna have to build levels and stuff like that. But the scale and rotation you can get away with not needing on your own. Okay. All right. So that is kind of the real basics of the editor.